Good evening and welcome to Pressing Issues. Today is Sunday, December 13th, and I'm your host, Jason Diffendahl, here again to discuss some of the pressing issues in the Walt Disney Company, Walt Disney World parks, and across the fandom. So I'd like to introduce my panel here today. We have Ashley Jasmer.
Hey, everybody.
And we have Ron Deanna.
Hey, folks.
And we will have Spencer in a short while. He's going to pop in here after we're done with timekeeping. So as we usually, I have no background. My green screen is black today. I'm on a new webcam and a new computer, and I haven't had a chance to get everything all set up yet, but we'll get there soon. But anyway, let's talk about timekeeping first, Ron. I'm gonna dig up those images you sent.
1979 might be the most boring year for things that actually happen at Walt Disney World that I've seen so far. Literally, the only thing I could see that opened or closed of any import, and this is stretching the word of any import, is the bathrooms at the Luau Cove. Literally nothing else opened. We got a new parade with Dumbo's Circus replacing Mickey's 50th birthday parade. And Polaroid came in, took over the sponsorship camera-wise, so they took the Main Street Camera Shop name, but that was it. So we're really talking more about kind of incidental things and construction that began. First thing that happened was, Big Thunder Mountain started construction. We just did a whole Back to the Future on that, 2 weeks ago, Jason? So we really don't need to get that far into that. It's an important part of the park. It kind of all but finishes the Magic Kingdom for most of the 80s. We get a few updates, but really nothing until like 89 at that point. But the big thing was obviously Epcot broke ground in October. And we've discussed a lot about leading up to this, but we finally kind of get the concept art of what Epcot would look like in full. I sent that over to Jason if we could pull that up. So I think some of you guys might have seen this. I think I had this art up on the special we did for the marathon show. This is the 1979 annual report Epcot concept art of what it's supposed to look like on opening day. No, if you'll notice, for some reason, this version of the image is flipped horizontally. It drove me nuts trying to realize that, and I was like, oh, I have so much to talk about. They flipped the entire layout of the park, but even if you look at the World Showcase pavilions, they're reversed. Like you see the American Adventure in the back, flanked by Italy and Japan, and then Germany and something I can't identify on the Japan side. But everything's there. I think at this point, they were still talking about Costa Rica, so that might have been Costa Rica. I have no idea what that is, Jason. Can you see it? Upper left corner.
Next to Japan?
Yeah, between Japan and I think France. I think it's still France, you could tell. But the annual report mentioned Costa Rica was still in the works, so that's the only thing I think that could be, because it's the only one I can't really identify. But I like that you can see the show buildings. You can see behind the UK there's a show building because they were still talking about a theater. You see a round show building for the Circle Vision down behind Imagination in the Canada, where you could even see the hotel that they would put there. Japan's in the right spot, obviously, with you can't see the building per se, but it's hidden behind the facade. If you look over at Germany, you can see the Rhine River Cruise building. So this is almost exactly the plan. So if you scroll to the other side of the lagoon, Jason, you can see what looks like, there's no China, but what looks like some sort of Scandinavian version of a pavilion with a boat out front is already there. So that was also being discussed. But it's still surprising that there was no China at this point so far along. even though you have Equatorial Africa, which would just kind of stay as the refreshment outpost. I really like this concept art. It's really close, but really different. If you pan out a little bit, Jason, towards the center, you can see that there were supposed to be two show buildings kind of flanking the entrance to World Showcase. And one of them has like a spire to it. It kind of, to me, mirrors the Tomorrowland entrance. The Walt Disney World used to have, and they still have at Tokyo.
Yeah. Yeah.
But my theory on this, and I think I've talked about, the article isn't, I don't think, been published yet, but there's always been talk that there were some sinkhole issues in Epcot, obviously with the Horizons, but these two areas are where we have the two Epcot Future World ponds. And supposedly, I know the Odyssey was supposed to be pushed back to the side because of that stability issue, so I think that's what happened to them. But everything else, you see, this is the first time we see Imagination in the mix. The land in almost like, greenhouse tops notwithstanding, you kind of get the final form of that. This here in the bottom is the Century 3 Pavilion. This is the first stab at Horizons. I don't know what there's the tower and then the main show building. I mean, they really were just developing this. That's why it was kind of behind schedule there. The other side is very similar. You have a final version of what the transportation pavilion would be. I don't think they still had most of the names other than just the land down at this point. Until last year's concept art, there was still a circle like cut out of the middle of that would become the center core scene. And then on the south side, you see almost exact version of the energy building, except for the pond out front's a little different. Now, one of the things I wanted to focus on here was this pavilion on the far right, which would be kind of in the Horizons Mission Space spot. This is something we didn't know what this was a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't got quite to it. This we thought was, either going to be like the Life and Health or the Seas Pavilion. But if you can cut to that Herb Ryman concept art, I found this on a few sites. If you see in the bottom, it says Science and Technology Pavilion. As far as I could tell, this is the only place in public that this name existed. This was published in Herb Ryman's A Brush with Disney book. But really, it was mentioned once in like a Business Week, I think, article, and they said GE was working on it, but it was just called the Science and Technology Pavilion, and until I saw this piece, I'd never heard of this. Jason, had you? Because, that's kind of the fill that Communicore and Inventions would take.
Yeah, I heard of a Science and Technology Pavilion. Not really knowing a lot about it, though. This is really weird because this looks like a mashup of the Living Seas and Horizons. The entrance looks very Horizons-esque, and then you've got that big round building, which, maybe that was a Circle Vision or I don't know what, but it sure reminds me of the Seas. It
might have been based off the Seas architecture because we'd seen that in previous concept art already. So maybe they were just having trouble getting a sponsor for the Seas. United Technology ended up being the first sponsor, and that's kind of a weird Seas sponsor. Who was really going to sponsor an oceanography pavilion? But I could see, them incorporating that design here. And yeah, I definitely got the same Horizon spaceship vibe from the entrance, but we wouldn't get this in any shape and form. I think they just kind of realized it was redundant with everything else.
Yeah, I guess Communicore probably took over this concept because at this point, I don't know what Communicore was supposed to be. We knew Communicore was in the middle. It was supposed to be more of, Communicore, everybody thinks is a shortening of Communications Core.
But it's
but
community.
it's community core, and so I don't know that community core was really the technology communications thing that Communicore turned out to be. I think it was really looking for something else, and then for whatever reason, this science and invention pavilion turned into Communicore, and then we got the C's and essentially the C's is what we got in place of this one.
Yeah, I mean, we in the 78 annual report, they talk about the Future World Mall instead of saying Communicore. And that's kind of not the shopping mall, per se, but it was this shopping that, that was where all the, other than the land, this was the only place to get food. This was the only real store.
Right.
The Centurion.
It was like the big open walkway, and then like shops and food, and it was kind of like a gathering place. I think that's what the community core thing really kind of meant. It's in the center of the park. It's a gathering place. You can eat there, that definitely is something we should look into more. Is how Communicore morphed from community core to technology and communications.
Well, I think what we got with the early Communicore was about how all the other pavilions interact with people in the modern world. Like the exchange exhibit was kind of not the history of energy or the future of energy, more of what we have now and how we use it. And then like computers were the new thing, how computers are affecting things right now, because it was actually the computer center you would see. So I think it really was kind of a technology and community combination in the middle, and I think that fit its design pretty well. But yeah, I really love this piece of art we've got here. It's obviously a little bit of the architecture changes from super futuristic to a little more that brutalism futuristic, I think.
Yeah.
Like the more
this is a much more picturesque Communicore architecture for sure.
They really love those.
In the chat, somebody in the chat said that this where is it? This spot over here that you're not sure, or which spot did you think was Costa Rica? Maybe
between Japan and France.
Somebody in the chat said that there was a sign in that spot that was the future home of Israel.
That could be.
And I mean, that would be where Morocco is today, so that kind of makes sense. That was an open pad. I mean, there were two open pads there. As you can see, there's a lot of space. There were two open pads. There was the Morocco pad and then the pad where Ratatouille's getting built right now between Morocco and France.
Well, I know there were 11 open pads. I don't know if that counts the Norway and Morocco additions, and then we were down to 9 for years, but there were supposedly 11 open pads. They don't all have the same frontage, but, they had enough space backstage to do things. I know we lost one, obviously, to Ratatouille. We lost one to the Summer House. And we lost one to the Millennium Pavilion, which is that big, real big spot of land. Still a great concept. I wish they would do something back like that. Just more rotating exhibits, sponsored by countries, but whatever. So that's kind of where we are at Epcot. There wasn't really much discussed because it was really moving. I just got a notice through Discord that they found the Israel sign, but yeah, I just don't know what that was in that concept art, because Costa Rica is mentioned is why I thought that could be it. And the other thing that happened this year was Walt Disney World had its 100 millionth guest. And I wanted to bring this up just because they don't do this anymore. We stopped, so that little 8-year-old kid in the middle, Kurt something, was the one who won. And he won a lifetime pass for being the 100 millionth guest. And I think they stopped after the 500 million because we're definitely way past $1 billion. But that's something that I don't do anymore, and I kind of wanted to bring it up just because it's something that disappeared.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was reading. So I was reading actually an article about the first guest, right? So obviously the very first guest on October 1st, 1971, was a big deal too. I've always wondered when I've seen these things like, the 100 millionth guest or whatever, how they pick who it is. And I was reading an article. I was reading an article in the Orlando Sentinel from October 2nd, 1971, which is a pretty neat issue of the Orlando Sentinel for sure. The way, so I think there were like 32 turnstiles back then, and so the way they picked the very first guest and made the big hullabaloo about it was completely random. And so there were 32 turnstiles, and right before the turnstiles opened, like somebody or a computer or something picked one of the turnstiles, and whoever was the first person through that particular turnstile was going to be designated as the first guest. And again, it was a family with some children, but it was really interesting to me how they actually figured out who was the first guest, and it was completely random. I mean, so if you got there early enough, you had a 1 in 32 shot of being the first guest through the
Could you imagine
turnstiles.
being somebody one of the other 31, though?
I know, right? Like you're the second guest at the Magic Kingdom ever.
I remember
right. I would have done it. If I would have been there in 71, I would have.
I was at the opening of Animal Kingdom, and we got there around 6 a.m., and it was already fairly packed. I think we were still within between. We were still like maybe 30 or 40 people back, and it was a crowd, not really in lines because they did the dedication and all that. And I know that's the last time I know Disney World gave out I think they gave the first family through the lifetime passes.
Yeah.
But my understanding is at that point they had a few families in there, and then they just picked the one that they thought was going to be photogenic and all that stuff.
Right. Yes. Yep. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the case in most instances.
But one of my favorite things about that kid we showed is you can't see it in this photo. There's another photo in the annual report where you can see he's wearing a Darth Vader Lives t-shirt. Because this would have been right before Empire Strikes. This would have been a few months before Empire Strikes, about 5 months before Empire Strikes Back comes out. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting tie into Disney's future. So that's that. The chat did want to see my shirt, so let me see if I can get that a little better on camera. This is a shirt I made a few years ago. This is the only one. I put it up on Redbubble, and it got taken down, I think, for the logo being a copyright violation. But it's just Muppet Vision 3D gives me a full-on double Sweetums.
I love that.
That's not something we could ever print because of the logo now. I mean, we could probably do something like that, but that's not kind of our thing with carousel of products. But yeah, so this is something I made some years ago, and I didn't realize how bad the font would look on this and all that. And on the back, it says, "What kind of foolishness would you like to see?" Or "What foolishness would you like to see?" on the back. So that's that. That's really about it for timekeeping. We had, they got their zoological certification at Discovery Island through the American Zoological and Aquarium Society or something like that. And they built a conference center over at, I think, the Lake Buena Vista area. They just call it the Walt Disney World Conference Center in the documentation. So I didn't say exactly where, so I just assumed it was there because they talked about supporting it through villas. So That's that. Yeah, so not much happened in '79. We got a couple more years of slower stuff, but then it kicks into high gear.
Yeah, let me see. So Spencer's not here yet, but yeah, let me just put another plug out there. So if you didn't catch our Epcot construction discussion on during the marathon show a couple weeks ago, Ron and I spent 2 hours with a lot of concept art talking about the lead up to Epcot and the construction. Really cool concept art. That was one of my favorite segments to do. So that should be out there on the WDWNT YouTube channel. But go check that out if you missed that. And then yeah, speaking of t-shirts, I see him in the chat. Brian's in the chat. Brian was one of our auditionees, and he came to the audition in a shirt that said, "I'm just here for the Diffendal rant," and I laughed. It was great. So yeah, that was fun. We're gonna start the new year with with a bunch of new people on pressing issues. So we've been doing auditions this week, and they'll continue into next week. And we'll have, I think we're going to have a whole cast of rotating panelists, and different panelists will be sort of rotated in depending on the topics, because what I'm finding from these auditions is that some people are very knowledgeable at certain things, and it would make the most sense to have them on for those particular topics. And so, but we're going through that process. But we'll start in January with a whole new stable of panelists for the show. Especially because, like, tonight there's the whole Investor Day thing and all those new D23 shows, and I'm not really into a lot of shows, so I haven't. Haven't paid a lot of attention to that, and so I know it's a big deal for a lot of people, and we need to talk about it.
That's
But
more my thing.
That's where it's good to have other panelists that know about Disney Plus and what all these shows are and things, because that's not something that I was really focused on. But anyway, so those of you who are asking. We did audition signups we did last week. The sign up, if you search on WDWNT.com for last week's pressing issues post, the audition sign up form is still there. It's still up. I don't know how many more we're going to do, but you can certainly fill it out, and we will see if we can get through all of the people that have signed up so far. There've been a heck of a lot of signups. So yeah, that's where things are right now with that. Do you guys want to talk about Disney Plus until Spencer gets here?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, let's do that.
All right.
So go ahead. I don't know. There's all these shows. I know WandaVision. That's been something that's been talked about, but all these other shows, like, I have no idea what they are. So, you guys go for it.
I mean, and Ron, correct me if I'm wrong, because I tried to go back and watch and read a lot about it, but with a lot of this stuff, it seemed like they were just like, "Hey, it's coming." They didn't really go into a whole lot of detail as far as, like, even a priming summary of what's it going to be. They're just like, "Yeah, we're doing Tiana's going to have her own show." And I know a lot of people made the joke on Twitter. It's like, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's great. I love the movie. It's still one of my favorite movies, favorite soundtracks of all time. But it's like, to me, it seems like, well, you're only giving her this movie now so that we can establish some sort of continuity to make the Splash layover work. Like, because they didn't go into any detail, so that's the natural assumption. Like, they threw everything out just to see what would stick and make people excited for it. And I think that was just to prime the price increase. That's my philosophy of what's going down over at Disney Plus. I will be curious to see how many of these actually make it to the platform and last more than like 6 episodes.
Well, I think that's the beauty of this platform is they could do things that are just 6 to 10 episodes, get them out, get them one and done. And I think that's what these kind of platforms work great for. We didn't see any more sequel series. Like, we know we're going to get a Mandalorian 3. Come on, that's in the bag. They didn't talk about that. But I think a lot of these things are one-shot stories, and I think that's a good thing, particularly in like the Star Wars and Marvel verse. The Tiana thing, the Splash Mountain thing, I love the concept of Shadow Man's back and he uses his powers to just suddenly summon a mountain up right in Jackson Square. Like, you could work in the story, like he has the magic to do it. So
it absolutely could. I mean, it's just, to me, like, and that's kind of like, I think you're right. I think the platform lends itself to that kind of thing. But we did this whole investor thing that announced all these shows, and it's so exciting. But you gave no synopsis of anything, so there's not actually anything for anybody to latch on to other than a title. Or maybe, like, it seems to me like at least when Netflix starts talking about a new show or something like that, like they give you some sort of priming for at least an overall view of what the show is going to be about. And at least to me, they didn't do enough of that to make it worthy of this whole big production of shows that are coming.
They did it because it was the Investor Day, not this wasn't Media Day or anything like that. It was Investor Day because they're saying this is going to be our prime source of revenue going forward. And we always said, like, oh, with this many subscribers, and this price, how are they going to do anything? Their projected subscriber count by 2024, when I think is kind of the last of these shows is going to be coming out, even if they don't raise the price again past that $8 a month, that's over $28 billion a year in revenue coming from that. And they're saying this whole thing is going to cost about $16 billion to make all the content that they announced. So that's over 4 years, and $28 billion is 1 year's worth of revenue. So that's what this was about, is like, this is how we're going to generate things. These are the kinds of things we're doing. And I think they highlighted a lot of stuff that they showed was more on the multiculturalism and inclusion stuff, because we see that they're doing a Colombian fairy tale. Tiana and Moana were the highlighted princesses for the live-action shows. I
guess, my question here is... am I echoing? I am. Okay. My question here... Yeah, ever since I put the map up behind me, I'm echoing it. My question here is... my question here is... It's pretty clear that they just threw all this stuff out there to make an impression on the investors. It obviously worked because the stock price hit a record high. They're talking about $29 billion a year revenue. What this doesn't seem to take into account, though, is how much revenue they're losing by putting movies direct to Disney Plus, right? Like, so the Mulan thing... for $30, I think that totally flopped from what I've seen. First of all, because a lot of people didn't want to pay $30 to watch the movie, but then also those who did felt ripped off because the movie sucked.
Well, it can't look that bad. They're doing it again.
They're doing.
I think what's concerning though is they're choosing not to do it with Soul. Hi, I came in late and the discussion has already started.
No, you're echoing, or your volume or something is very off.
That was on my end.
They're doing it with Raya and the Last Dragon. So they're doing it.
But they're not doing it with Soul.
But are they doing it with Black Widow too?
No, Black Widow was not announced for it yet. I think they think by May or wherever that's out, there might be a few more, like the vaccine might be a little more prevalent and people are going to theaters. I think this was actually showing that, like, if the theater is dead, we're prepared for that. We are still releasing stuff in theaters, but we could show you, like, if you analyze these numbers and analyze what we're coming from, this is more than going to make up for that revenue because, Jason, box office numbers are nowhere near that. Like, even if you count worldwide, a $2 billion film, they're seeing maybe half of that. So if you're getting people in and, to Disney Plus, and maybe, the kind of thing Disney's going to do is, you're going to get locked down to year contracts. I think that's going to be their game. They're not going to do this month to month as much. Or if you cancel, you're not going to be able to come back for a bit. Like, they're going to find a way to lock you into longer terms. But also, if they're doing Marvel show, Star Wars show, Marvel show, people aren't going to cancel because they're going to be rolling out this content constantly. And with 20 Marvel and Star Wars series over the next 4 or 5 years, they have that content. And then they have filler content, which was really, like, there was some really bad sequels. I mean, I'm excited for Disenchanted because that movie's been talked about forever. Hocus Pocus 2, the same thing. But, like, do we need a Turner and Hooch remake?
No.
Yeah, see, and so. I
mean, I'm excited he's getting work, but no, we don't need that.
It's not the same dog.
What?
So, before Jason launches, I just want to say really quickly about Premier Access, because I got cut off earlier. The concerning thing for me is you said the movie sucked, and that's why no one wanted to pay them the money to see Mulan. We've seen the reviews from Seoul. It's a 100, which is extremely rare, I believe, on Rotten Tomatoes, because they did it at a film festival, didn't they? So why aren't they putting this extremely good movie? People are always going to pay to see Pixar movies. Why aren't they putting this supposedly extremely good movie under Premier Access?
Because it's the same day as Wonder Woman 1984 is going free on HBO Max.
That's why.
Mm.
Well,
okay.
So if you had the choice, $7 for Wonder Woman or $30 for a Pixar movie.
You're not
don't
going
get
to
me wrong, I hear you that it's rated very good, but at the same token, Onward, I mean, people kind of got burned with Onward, even though you didn't have to pay extra. It got hyped up a lot and then wasn't actually that great. So
Onward was also early in this process, before we all started to kind of get used to this reality that we weren't going to go to the movie theater. Like, I held off seeing Onward because I have a U.S. Disney Plus subscription because I, for legal reasons, do also live in the U.S. And I didn't want to see Onward because I wanted to wait for it to come out in the theater, and it did. It came out in August, and I saw it at the movie theater. I think earlier in this process, especially with Onward, number one, Onward wasn't like the best movie. And number two, we weren't all used to this reality that major content is going to be coming to streaming services only. We were all still hoping for the return of movie theaters by July. That's when we were promised for Tenet to come out, and it did, and it didn't do well.
So I have a couple of concerns overall, and so one is that they certainly, the idea of having sort of mini series on Disney Plus is maybe a good one to get people to not cancel, because I know there's people that, like, for Netflix, they'll sign up, they'll binge watch a whole season of something, and then they'll cancel, and then they'll come back in a year and do the same thing.
That's also why I think the price point's lower, because at $15 a month, you'll say I'll cancel. At $8 a month, you're going to go, well, I'll watch one. Like, even if I watch one thing out of the back catalog, it's worth it. I'm not going to cancel.
Right? No, I agree. I think that's accurate. But my
plan.
My concern is that it almost seems like, with how much stuff they announced at the Investor Day. And they're saying that's going to be over 4 years. I mean, obviously they can come up with more things, but that's a heck of a lot of content that they're putting out there. And if they put out a series based on I don't know what, and it's just like 6 or 8 episodes, but it sucks, then they've kind of burned that content, at least for a while. They can't come back and put out another series based on the same thing because everybody's going to say it sucks. And so my concern is that this looks like a quantity over quality thing that they're doing, and I don't know that that's really going to get people excited or interested, or they're going to watch
hold on,
one episode.
And that's a very good point, because it almost seems like they're doing, because that's more or less Netflix's model. Like, yes, Netflix has a lot of hits, but they also have a lot of duds. Like, they just kind of throw stuff out there and sees what sticks. Like, they are constantly at this point now. Like, they have their tent poles, like Stranger Things and The Crown and Witcher and things like that. But other than that, they just flood and sees what sticks. And I think Disney is seeing that, and I think that's... But I think that's short-sighted, because Netflix has at this point had some time and has established their tent poles, and then has the flexibility to throw and see what sticks. And they're also not building off of things that people have. Well, Disney has The Mandalorian. That's their tent pole.
No, it has all their entire back catalog.
No. But that's what I mean, though. That's going to be the other problem.
It's Indiana Jones, it's Marvel, it's these things that they already have dedicated fan bases for.
Right, those are the 10.
Right, but what my concern is, and what I think, to build off of what Jason was saying, is that if you're just going for mass production and you're taking things from these what could be tent poles, aren't quite yet because you don't have the media, you're going to burn yourself, because if you don't do it well, no one's going to want to watch anything from that anymore.
Right.
Also, I think they're kind of short-sighted. Because what about the people who don't really care for Marvel or Star Wars? Like me, don't get me wrong. I enjoy both of those, I guess, franchises, fandoms. I do. But it's not enough to draw me in personally. Like, once I get through watching the back catalog of stuff, there's a good chance I'm going to cancel, because I still have yet I never finished season 1 of The Mandalorian. Like, I know it's a great show. I'm not going to discount the fact that it's a great show.
Ashley, I haven't started season 1 of The Mandalorian.
But there's this whole group of Disney adults who don't. I feel like we're all just kind of lumped into this category where the assumption is, well, you like Star Wars or you like Marvel, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing for the rest of us except for Hocus Pocus 2.
Well, that's where bringing all these new movies that are going to go to Disney Plus are going to come in. I feel like when theaters return, because I get
stupid Pinocchio. That's it.
They're going
and
to
Peter Pan and Wendy.
I genuinely think that once theaters come back, they're going to shorten the window between when it comes to theaters and when it comes to Disney Plus versus other services or digital buying or Blu-ray, etc. For example, you could see Black Widow comes to theaters in May, and then it hits Disney Plus in July or August, and then maybe Blu-ray and digital buying in September, October.
Right.
That's how I think it's going to play that market.
You see that now with the windows. You get the theatrical release, and then you have the DVD and Blu-ray. A lot of studios have been doing, and I think Disney's one of them, is because their contracts with whoever didn't include digital when they originally signed them. They shortened that window to digital by a few weeks, so you could get that movie digital only a few weeks before you could buy the DVD and get the digital copy. I tend to wait for a lot of those because I like the hard copy and the digital copy when those come out. But that is a norm already that they have those short windows.
Yeah, they've been doing that for years.
And they are now definitely in a more of a upper-handed position to tell AMC and Regal and these companies, like, we're renegotiating those windows because not only do we have this, we could open our own theaters. So... And I think that's all. I still think that's part of their plan is hopefully they kind of want to drive AMC. And I think this is part of Warner's plan more with the HBO Max of everything going day and date for free. Of even like their major tentpoles are doing that. Like Star Wars Rogue Squadron wasn't mentioned as going day and day for free. I think that was hinted at being as a full theatrical release. But I think I think there is this plan of we could force AMC and Regal out of business, buy those theaters, and do our own premium theater things that is a Disney branded.
Antitrust. This will be
no,
that
antitrust discussion. No, that actually was an antitrust issue that the Department of Justice already said, it's out of date because it was relying on this one distribution model, which no longer exists. Now there are multiple distribution models, so why are we preventing them from doing this? And that was in the works, I think, even a little bit before the current administration. But the current administration finally, they've been talking about it for years, and I believe earlier in the summer is when they got rid of it. It was US v. Paramount.
But if they do this, then that's going to come back. People are going to call antitrust again. These concerns are going to be raised.
But it's not because there's so much other ways to get media now. Like, you've got the theater, but they're also giving it to you streaming. You've got Netflix still producing content streaming.
Disney owns. You've got the theater that Disney owns, or you've got the streaming service that Disney also owns.
But Warner and CBS Paramount and everybody else is going to do the same thing.
Is doing the same thing.
There were,
that's why people are going to call antitrust, is because everyone is going to do this thing where you either go with us or you go with us.
Because there's still the same competition.
But there's also all the other smaller streaming services like Prime.
Spencer, you're going to have
Netflix that are going to be buying
Disney
that
Plus
third-party content.
Right, you're going to have Disney Plus, you have HBO Max, you have Netflix, you have Amazon Prime, and you just the only difference is that you don't have theaters owned by companies that are separate. You're going to have a Disney theater that's going to show Disney content, and then you're going to have an HBO Max theater that's going to show all those movies, or a Warner theater that's going to show Warner Brothers movies. It's not like you're only going to get one theater in your town, and they're only going to show Disney content. There's enough theaters in existence that even if a content company owns one, as long as all the other content companies can do the same thing, there's still going to be competition.
And
that's the part that you're missing out.
I can see them finding joint ventures to buy these things out.
Sure.
Too. So
Absolutely.
It's not just a Disney brand. You're going to have, obviously they could obviously say ticket spread is going to different things, and then you might have the antitrust issue might come in with they're defining release dates, and that's I'm blanking on the term right now, but that's collusion to set these dates.
We're going from AMC being an independent company to AMC being an own joint venture between different movie studios, essentially.
Pretty much, yes.
That's
you
what
could
you're
say
proposing.
I think that's
what
we'll
see is the problem.
I don't see it as...
And you've got different theaters that are owned by different company. Again, right. Comcast or Universal or whomever that show just that content. And then you just pick what theater you go to. And you do that now. Back when we had them, based on who was showing what and what times. So, it's just an evolution of the distribution.
The difference right now is that every theater shows films from multiple companies. That's what I'm getting at. Is you can't just have this wide vertical integration where you either go to the studio-owned theater or the studio-owned streaming service, and that's it.
But
Spencer, if you were a content producer,
no.
If I was a content producer, you have.
You've gotten so off topic.
This is exactly what I would want to do. The problem is, it very much flies in the face of antitrust to a certain extent.
But traditionally, U.S. antitrust tends to be okay with vertical integration. They don't like horizontal integration where it takes over a whole market. And the media and this whole US v. Paramount was kind of an exception to that, where they put it as a vertical integration sticks because they already saw that there was enough horizontal change. So that's the way it worked here. But and it is out of date because we have Netflix and these independent channels. Like, think about it. There's Scream and all these other like genre niche streaming services, Hallmark and all those. They all exist. So those are still competition. They might not be blockbuster competition, but
yeah, a lot of channels.
There's plenty of options.
Channels have their own.
I think what it comes down to is that content creators can control where they want their content to go. Like if Disney just decided we're not going to release any of our movies to an AMC theater, it's going to be like Regal exclusive. Disney could do that if they wanted to, right? So it's just the content creators controlling their product and where it goes. And there's no antitrust issues with that. So I think, but the other thing that I want to say is that I think movie theaters are going to be in for a big change. So it's pretty clear, like the AMC dine-in, right? Like you've got all these things that make movie theaters more of a destination with dinner and everything else, right? Because like the theater companies don't make a lot of money on the movies. They make all their money selling you like $10 popcorn, because like half of your $10 ticket goes to the company, the content creator. And then, traditionally,
it's like a sliding scale. The theater gets less money up front and more money as time goes on. Like it starts with like an 80-20 split and ends with a 20-80 split. At least it's more traditional. I think in the last decade or two, it's kind of evened out a little bit. That's why movies don't run as long in theaters and they put things on DVD and stuff quicker. But I think that's also the fact that, they put stuff on DVD quicker is also why they don't run as long. But that's why, 20 years ago, Episode 1 and like Titanic were out in theaters for a year. Yeah. And that was because the theaters had the incentive to keep them in there, even if they're only selling like 10 tickets, because they're getting the entire run of the money.
The whole ticket, yeah.
So in any case,
there's no denying that the theater model is going to change. You're right, Jason. The destination factor is definitely going to be.
I mean, I'm totally in favor of it. Like I've gone to like Movie Tavern is another chain of the places that do dinner and a movie, and I've been to Movie Tavern a number of times. Their food isn't actually great. I kind of don't like it. But the whole concept of having a comfortable chair and someone to bring you a soda refill instead of you having to miss the movie to go run out, that's what gets it for me. It's not even actually the dinner. It's the service and the atmosphere and the not being crammed into a theater with 100 other people, or when there's not 100 other people in the theater, you have a nice big chair that you can relax in. That's what does it for me, and I think, that's where I think things are going to go, especially if less people are going to the movies because all this stuff is coming out on streaming at the same time. You've got to make the movie theater a premium experience, because otherwise people will just stay home and watch it on whatever streaming service.
Right, everything is going to be Dolby 8, 4K, 8K, whatever they want to call it. It's going to be IMAX. We're going to have the big, comfortable recliners. I don't know if we're all going to have always the table service, because I kind of find the table service theaters a bit annoying, because there's more people running in front of me and stuff. And I realize I don't have to get up and do it, but I don't like having people running in front of me, even if it is, tiered.
It depends on the layout. Yeah, because if you have it set just so, you have to have it tiered correctly, though. Because if they don't have it tiered correctly, then to your point, yes, there's just people constantly running in front of your screen.
But AMC, is where I would usually go here, and they've improved, the food, they have, burgers and pizzas, and so it's we don't have to worry about going to Panera if we're running late before the movie. We could just go get, chicken fingers or whatever in the theater. It'd be nice to have, just put in, the little, airline, out of the armrest. The armrests are big enough, trays and stuff. You could do that and not have to have the table service. Have better food. Have the bar. I love having the bar. And that's why, when I used to live in Orlando, 20 years ago, it was more of a pain for us to get to the what was the Lowe's at Universal, but you could get a hot dog and a 20-ounce beer for $6 there. So, like, at a movie theater rate, that was great.
People in the Midwest, I know, love the Warren Theater for that reason, because they have a great bar and good food that they'll bring to you. My favorite cinema here in Tokyo does that too. They've been putting in all these nice new food options. There's like hot dogs and pizzas and churros, along with popcorn and stuff like that. I went right after they reopened, and I saw all 3 Back to the Future movies. And this goes into my next point. I think one of the big things about theaters surviving is not only will they be changing the way they serve the customer, I think that in absence of all these new box office blockbusters, that we'll also see a lot more of these, like, bringing older movies and cashing in on nostalgia kind of thing. Because when I went and saw Back to the Future, it was packed.
Yes.
I loved, and it was great too. Like, I had never seen it on the big screen, and I thought it was this incredible experience to watch Back to the Future, like, with a 100-foot high screen.
And it is. It's amazing. It's the experience. It's not the content.
Yeah, that's why you go to the movie theater.
Yep.
I genuinely
I went
think
to
we're going to see, like, every year they're going to, like, The Nightmare Before Christmas is going to be in the movies, or they'll bring back Halloween.
And when the studios control the theaters, they can do that very, very easily. Versus AMC doesn't really do that much.
Which
they do it on
Disney
occasion.
used to do really good things. And even though I had a lot of these movies on DVD, which were good enough quality, which was better than what the prints were, because I would go. I was minoring in film at the time. I never finished it, and one of my friends was majoring in it. But we would go see these classic, because they would have, this is a print from 1978 of Alien. This is a original Godfather. I drove 4 hours to watch Godfather on original print when I already had it on DVD.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like just because it's a classic. Obviously I love the quality of the digital film and stuff like that. And I miss, but don't miss, that kind of the cigarette burns and the little specks you would see, just because that's what I grew up with. Obviously, I don't need to miss it, and I don't miss it when I'm watching a movie at home. But sometimes when you're getting that classic cinema, that was great to have. Because they would do back-to-back Friday and Saturday. They would put 1 or 2 classic movies in there, and sometimes they would do double features. So I went to see Aliens original theatrical prints one night, and we got out of there like 5 in the morning, obviously. And they did the same thing with Raiders and I think these were both 70mm prints of Raiders and Last Crusade, and that was amazing and gorgeous.
That would have been
God!
cool to see.
I would pay so much money to see like a 70mm print of 2001: A Space Odyssey, or The Sound of Music, or Raiders, like all these old gorgeous films that were shot on that format. And that's another point I want to make. I think that so in Japan, a movie ticket is usually like $15 to $16 minimum. And I remember going back to the U.S. last year, I went and saw so many movies because it was half price, basically, compared to here. And I think that in reality, in Japan, in the United States, movie tickets are going to be expensive to match this premium experience. You guys are going to see this increase in costs. There's not going to be a lot of dollar theaters left. You're going to spend at least $15 minimum on a ticket, and then you do all the other stuff like your table service or your bars or whatever.
I'm always shocked when I read the numbers of what the average U.S. ticket cost is about $10. Here, a matinee is about $12. By the time you get to like IMAX, if it's like IMAX 3D or the Dolby, you're paying about $18. And
I paid $18 to see Avengers opening day with like no pluses. It was just the regular theater room. When I saw Endgame, it was like $18. It was Dolby Atmos because every theater is, but there was no 3D, there was no IMAX. It was $18 just to get my butt in the chair. And it felt expensive. I was kind of upset, but I think that's going to be the norm everywhere going forward.
Well, I just remember
but
that
I also think you're going to get the
first
experience that makes that the value, right? Like,
no, you will
like,
get the. I'm not saying that it's bad because the value will match the experience. This is how the theater model has to change.
But also, one of the things with the price increases, yes, I think we'll see a little bit of that. But they don't have to if they own the theaters to make as much money because they're not splitting it anymore.
Right.
You're cutting someone else's profit center out. You're cutting that middleman profit center out completely.
Right. So
That's
I
true.
want to.
We are way off topic.
Well, we are, and I want to go back to
But
one
it's fine.
thing. I want to go back to one thing that Ashley said that started this whole conversation, and that is we talked about Netflix, and Ashley's like, Netflix's model is just do all this random stuff and see what sticks, see what people like. And that seems like what Disney's trying to do, or at least with their announcement of 750,000 new shows on Disney+. The problem and the difference, and my biggest concern, is that Netflix has anything in their imagination as source material. Disney has to use some Disney something as source material. And that's a much more limited amount of source material.
Why?
That Disney
Why?
has.
Why not make new Disney? Why not make new Disney source material? I think that's really
you
short-sighted.
can. You just have to make it good.
We've gotten up until 2019. That's it. That's all the Disney we get, and we're just gonna rehash it over and over again.
You can get more, right?
More. But I think that's kind of what I think is lacking and disappointing. Yeah, but that's what I think is disappointing in a way about their announcement. Is it's all either Star Wars, Marvel, or a sequel / reboot of something that already exists. There's nothing new, and there's nothing to capture like 18 to 24 that isn't into Star Wars and Marvel.
Right, they know that
everyone else in though.
I mean, they do that with the Star Wars.
It's all about risk.
When they were talking about everything else, like the Turner and Hooch and like all those, like all the remakes, it's like it's so focus group to death. And I'm hoping they said they're going to keep Fox Searchlight. They said they're going to do those things, and that's not. I'm still a little confused as to Disney Plus, 18 Plus, and Hulu and Star because it's all this international. I'm trying to figure out exactly how they're all going to fit together and. They seemed a little vague about all that, like if
they don't know
merging certain things. Because I think Hulu and Disney Plus are going to lock in at some point. But like if they're producing,
so you're going to have Archer on Disney Plus. I don't see that going over well.
It won't be called Disney Plus. It'll be a separate service that's integrated. It'll have a separate name. But it'll be integrated into Disney Plus.
It'll be Hulu Plus.
There you go.
Or it'll be like Disney Plus Plus. I don't know.
I think the thing now is that Disney Plus is still not really proven. It's only been around a year. This could be a fluke. We don't know yet. It's likely that it's not, but certainly the Disney company doesn't know. They don't know whether this is going to turn. They're throwing everything that they can at the wall.
Between genre content and princess content, and the kids' content, let's not forget the driving force of people with young kids like me, what Disney Plus is. It is I am working from home with my kid, I can leave this on all day. And I don't know how many...
And not worry about it.
Right, and how many Mickey Mouse Clubhouse run-throughs were now. I've discovered one of my favorite cartoons of all time on there, which is Disney licensed called Bluey. If you have kids, I strongly recommend it. And we're on I watched that without Andy, I'll admit that. But we're on our sixth run through of that easily. So, yeah.
I think that the other thing is they expect to meet 330 million subscribers in 4 years, which I don't know how on earth they're going to do that. And a big part of that is going to be attracting everyone who's in those Marvel and Star Wars fan bases who wants to see all this content. If they want to hit that extremely ambitious goal in 4 years, then they need to throw every single thing they have at it. And that means maximizing Star Wars, maximizing Marvel, trying to get niche content.
Well, and that's what they're doing, right? Like that's what they're doing with all these new shows.
And that's why I'm justifying what they're doing.
Right. Well, that's fine. But my point is that if they don't come up with new content and all they're doing is creating shows based on existing IPs because there's less risk, then people eventually they're going to run out. Or they run out of things they can make and they made too much junk and now people won't watch it. Right? Like if WandaVision is terrible, are you ever going to watch another show with Wanda in it? Probably not.
People keep saying that burnout is going to happen. And the thing is, Star Wars burnout happened because everything they were putting out was crap. But we never
Exactly,
hit
but that's Jason's point. But that's Jason's point.
But we never hit Marvel burnout. We never did.
Not yet.
There was a new Marvel movie every single year.
Well, that's because
12 years?
That's because they were all different
topics. They all had quality. They all had some variety.
Were all of them could have been standalone, right? Like the Marvel, like the MCU isn't like Star Wars. Star Wars burnout.
There can't be. How do we know there can't be more original content like that? The Mandalorian is basically standalone. It's doing great.
Right, it is. But how many? But how much garbage do they make before they hit on a Mandalorian? Yes.
But I think we have with Marvel and Star Wars, we specifically have Kevin Feige and Dave Filoni running those TV things. And they have extremely proven track records. And they're not hands-on day-to-day people. They're the kind of people that go, I mean, Filoni has been, but I think he needs to know, but he's still very much in the, like, bring it to me and I'll tell you if it works. I mean, that's what a showrunner should be. They shouldn't be running it like every episode. And I think we have that for now with those guys. The Star Wars stuff to me was the biggest thing is like there was no risk even in Star Wars. The only one that wasn't like a known character we're getting is this High Republic show like Acolyte. Everything else is a known character, and I think that's what I'm a little worried about is they're going to run out of that. It's like you have so much lore from the old canon that you could play with, like 10,000 year history of Jedi and Sith. Don't play in the same sandbox over and over again. And I think that's one of the problems with with new Star Wars is they're playing in that sandbox and trying to play with the same toys instead of reinventing toys.
Well, yeah, that's what we saw with the sequel trilogy for sure. I genuinely want to look at this and hope that it will turn out fine. I trust Kevin Feige. I've only seen 2 bad Marvel movies out of the 20 they've put out, and one of them wasn't even made by Disney. I want to have faith that these are going to turn out good and that we don't have to worry about it as much. Feige and Filoni are great storytellers, and they know what works.
That's the key, and you see it in movies, and you see it in theme park attractions too. If there's a compelling story, then people will like it, and if there's a crappy story like the Star Wars sequels, people are going to be like, "This sucks. It's lazy. It's like Runaway Railway. So, what's the story? I don't get it."
And I want to defend the sequels to one bit. Is that it's not a bad story. Is they didn't have a story. They wrote movie by movie.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's
if you had written that as one thing, and it was 2 writers who wanted to go after Force Awakens, Johnson wanted to go this way, and Abrams wanted to go this way. And you couldn't tie those back together. That was the problem. Properly.
That was the problem.
This could be the whole conversation about why the sequels are bad.
Right, because Lucas wrote
why don't you guys go talk about this on Nerd Alert?
Like kind of independently.
Joe.
I want to talk about the parks now.
No, you still need to have an overarching
Disney stuff.
What our normal
yes, we need to go back.
This Disney stuff plus the Disney Plus bores me, and I want to talk about the parks now. Can we talk about the parks?
Yes.
We've got a Diffendall rant. Everyone take cover.
Choco Taco.
Get comfy, everyone.
I want to get in my rant because I had this rant last week and I forgot about it, and now it's even more important at this point because of certain things. So here's my rant for the week. Disney will not let annual pass holders upgrade their annual pass. So I went to guest relations, and I have a gold pass because it's the DVC member pass. I went to guest relations, and I said, I want to give you hundreds of dollars right now so that I can come to the parks a couple more days. And they said no. Now, if I renew my pass, I can upgrade to a different level pass. But I can't upgrade in the middle of the term of my pass. And so this is an issue for me because I am going to Orlando on Thursday, as long as we don't get dumped on with like 3 feet of snow like they're predicting. And the Gold Pass blackouts begin on Friday. So I'm going on Thursday, and I have an early flight, so I was going to spend Thursday at Epcot, and that was my plan. If my flight is delayed, I'm not going to get to go to the parks at all, and then Friday is the blackout, so I can't go Friday or Saturday or Sunday. So I wanted to upgrade my pass to go to the parks in more days, and they told me no. And I'm like, but I want to give you money. And they said, well, we can't, we're not doing that because there's already huge demand for park passes, and we don't want to let more people have access to the parks. I'm like, but I want to give you money. And
what would prevent you from just buying day tickets? Like, I don't understand their
nothing.
Logic.
Well, nothing. Nothing. You're right. And probably, to be completely honest, I could buy 2 day tickets and spend about the same amount as I would spend to upgrade my pass, and I would use them on Friday and Saturday, and that would be all I would need, really, because the Gold Pass doesn't have a lot of blackout dates. But it's the principle to me, is that I'm already an annual pass holder, and I just want to upgrade so I can go a couple more days. And they're telling me that because of the park pass system, that I can't. And so my question is this: the park pass system sucks, and people who want to go to the parks already can't. And so why does Disney care if I'm going to give them money that there's one more person out in the world trying to get a park pass for a particular day? Like, when is the last time Disney actually cared how hard it was to get a park pass? That they're concerned that if I upgrade my pass and then try to get a park pass for Saturday, it's going to be a problem because there's such high demand. Like, it's true, and I get it, that, the more people that and that's why they haven't sold any new annual passes, is because the parks are limited in capacity. But I'm already an annual pass holder, and I just want to give them more money to go an extra day or two that I'm blocked out. And I'm amazed that somewhere somebody thought that, oh, well, we shouldn't do this because it's too hard to get park passes as it is, and we're willing to forego this guy giving us $200 because it'll make the guest experience better for those people who are trying to get park passes. Like, that's what I don't get. Disney, for some reason, somehow, is saying that all of a sudden they care about the guest experience and they care about how hard it is to get park passes on certain days. But yet, and that's fine if I wasn't offering them hundreds of dollars, right? So they care to some extent, but they're not letting people upgrade. But if my renewal date was today, then I could upgrade. So it's kind of arbitrary that you can only do it on your renewal date. You can't do it in the middle of your pass.
I've got a theory that goes into Disney's normal IT stupidity is they can't shut off. They had to shut off the pass upgrades because of the whole Platinum not being available, Platinum Plus not being available because there's nothing in Platinum Plus at the moment, right? So, or anything like that. So they couldn't shut off just that, so they just shut off the upgrade system.
They couldn't figure out how to do it.
Okay, but so right now they're telling me I can't upgrade, but yet if I was a Platinum and I would come in and say I want to upgrade to Platinum Plus, they they could tell me no then too, right? Like, they don't have to shut it off. They just have to tell people you can't do that.
Maybe the upgrades are different because it's upgrading to this, and then that's new inventory in the future. Jason, their IT systems are so bad.
Oh, I know.
Would blame it on anything.
I honestly think that's what it is, because I can't in any way, shape, or form believe that they're concerned about park passes and capacity and people not being able to get park passes. I can't believe that's the actual reason. So it has to be
that can't be
a
the
technical
issue.
reason why they can't figure out how to do it. I think they can't figure out how to do it. It's not that they don't want to do it because it puts a strain on the park pass inventory. It's that they can't figure out how to make it work.
Because
and that's my rant.
There's a way to make it. There's a way to make it work. You turn on the upgrades again. The problem is it probably just breaks something.
I was going to say, somewhere down the line of the availability, it would break. But how much do they honestly care when even just today,
they don't.
People are still speculating that they have secretly upped capacity again.
To like 45% because the lines are insane. The line for Frozen Ever After went to the refreshment outpost, and it's never, ever gone that long. Mm-hmm. It's never, ever gone that long. Right? And so how could you possibly be at the same capacity level? But yet all of a sudden, Frozen Ever After has a 120-minute wait, which it has not had since July. There has to be more capacity. So yeah, like they absolutely can't be. It can't be the reason that they care about park passes. It has to be that's a cover for some other reason. And therefore, it makes me not go to the parks and spend money. So I want to give them money so that I can go to the parks and then spend more money, and they don't want it. So instead, I'm just going to go to Universal and give Universal my money. That's it.
Because normally, when you have these kind of upgrade issues and whatever, is you can go to a different guest relations person. Like, you might have to go through like 3 or 4 times. You're going to get the answer you want. Like, usually it just depends on how nice you are and how helpful you are. So unless there's some real back-end reason, which is why I think there is the IT reason, which is stupid, but given everything else they've done with IT, is they're probably not sure if their IT is in-house or outsourced again this week.
Yeah, I agree.
Very valid point.
I think it's absolutely an issue with their computer systems, and if there's
they turned it off and don't know how to get it back on again.
If there's any company in the world, if there's any company in the world of a similar market cap that has such a terrible IT system, I can't possibly see how they can function. Like, they barely can function as it is. Can you imagine if, like, Amazon tried to become a huge player in the online marketplace with an online store system like Disney has? Can you imagine if, like, Universal, who's doing so many things so much better than Disney is right now, right? Like, the Universal app works. Who would have thought that an app for a theme park actually could work and function correctly and not crash? Like, it's amazing. This is going to be the whole app and the whole online store system and fast passes and the whole ecosystem around my Disney experience is going to be a huge problem going forward when more and more people have to use the app and are forced to use the app, and it's going to become a bigger and bigger liability. Well, they are, but I mean, now they're forced to use it for mobile ordering. Like, before, you could go up to the register and order food. Now you're forced to use it for mobile ordering. So the more people that are forced to use the app more frequently are just going to put more strain on the system. And we've already seen it come crashing down, several times for a day. It's kind of it's going to become a bigger and bigger liability as time goes on.
Imagine what will happen if they bring back fastpass.
Well, so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight, funnily enough, is
Oh, good segue.
is one of the auditioners in Pressing Issues audition the other night just brought this up and threw it out there out of nowhere and said I could steal it if I wanted, so I am. People are now getting used to life without fastpass, right? And so standby lines are moving pretty quickly. So even though your standby line goes to, from Big Thunder Mountain to Tomorrowland, it still moves pretty quickly because A, there's no fast pass, and B, there's 6 feet in between people, so you cover a lot more ground. So it seems to be moving faster, right? But one of the big keys is there's no fast pass to make the standby line stop. And so people are getting used to this. People haven't experienced this in decades, really.
Since what, 99?
So
is that when FastPass came out?
Yeah. It started in
Yeah.
Animal Kingdom and then started rolling out the rest in 99. I think it went to California
So
a
it was
year
20
later.
years.
Yeah, we've had it since 2000 as well.
So decades. People have not experienced a park without FastPass in decades. And now all of a sudden, here we are. There's no FastPass. People seem to be okay with it. Like, people aren't... I don't see people clamoring to bring back FastPass. It doesn't
There's
seem...
people in the chat who are clamoring to bring back FastPass.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so and I can totally understand that people like us who know how the system works and who know how to use it are beneficiaries of FastPass, right? But like the average person, probably FastPass makes their life more miserable than without it. If you're a once every 5 or 10 year Disney visitor and don't know how the system works, then FastPass is going to make your life worse. It's going to make our life better. And normally,
I disagree with that because
Ron, go ahead, but I want to put my vote in for something.
those people
I
who
wanna
are
talk
going
about
once
this
every
too,
5
actually.
years are guaranteed with FastPass to get those queue spaces that they want for those e-tickets. So it does different things for different people. And I know we're going to go with this on another thing, and I'll wait for that, but let Ashley go.
Okay, so I hate the current FastPass system. I really do. I think it's stupid that you have to make your reservations 30, 60 days in advance. Dining reservations I get, but ride reservations is just annoying. Like,
I don't know how you.
and it's such a pain in the neck to wake up 30 or 60 days before my vacation at 7 a.m. and fight a bunch of people for 7 Drawers Mine Train. I think that they should
Rise
bring
of the
back
Resistance.
FastPass. Or Rise or whatever. Well, yeah, but I mean, Rise we never got to see on the old system. We just now have this stupid day of that doesn't work because the ride doesn't work system. But I think for everything else, they should just do day of fast passes. You get one, you use one. I hate this system because I think there's more. I think there is a more likelihood of you getting a fast pass for something that you want if it is day of. And I think trying to plan out your entire day takes a lot of the fun out of going to a theme park. I like Universal's system. I like that I can go that day and pull up on my phone everything that's available and pick a fast pass and use it and then go on about my day and pick something else. I liked that about the old way with the paper.
No, but that's at
Universal it's included. At our Universal it's included for certain rides. You just pull it up and there it is. No, I'm talking about
I hate you because Express
you're talking
Pass
about
is
Hagrid's.
Literally the cost.
Express
Pass is literally the cost of the ticket doubled.
No, she's talking about Hagrid's and
there's like a handful of e-tickets that you can get and you pull it up.
Does this, yeah.
They're virtual queue only, yeah.
Virtual queue. Okay, they call it virtual queue. But it's essentially, it's the same thing that Disney's FastPass system does. I think that's what they should go to. And I think, personally, after seeing that system work at Universal, now granted lower capacity and everything, but the way that they didn't seem to have the extreme impact on the standby line either.
So
I don't know. Maybe they had their math figured out better or what, but...
Well, I want to address...
That's what I would like to see in a perfect world.
And the Max Pass, which is coming up in the chat, I know Jason wanted to bring it up, is why I don't see that system coming back to Walt Disney World. Because the way FastPass is designed now is to keep you out of lines and to keep you shopping and eating. And both Universal Orlando and Disneyland, while our tourist destinations, are not places people go and have 2 or 3 meals in the park. Disney World is. And I think by giving people those fast passes, they know the time that they're not in line, they're doing the dining and they're doing the shopping. And I think right now, with the restaurants closed, they don't care as much, stuff like that. But once everything's back to full capacity, they want to do everything to keep people out of those standby lines and in the restaurants and shops. And that's what FastPass is designed for. It's also designed for, being able to schedule. That's why it's 60 days. 30 days would make a lot more sense. And I think most people would be happy with the 30 days on the Fast Passes, which I think it really should be, except Disney puts out cast member schedules about 6 weeks in advance, and the 60 days gives them 2 weeks to plan those schedules because they know kind of proportionally where people are going to be in the parks in just hours.
But
that's why it's there. It's not for us, it's for them. Because dining reservations or
it's dumb. Why do I have to decide if I want to ride teacups in 60 days at 7 o'clock in the morning?
Something also that I think we forget, well, I don't live in Orlando, but a lot of people who spend a lot of time in Orlando or live in Orlando forget is that this system is designed for people who are flying to Orlando to go to Disney World. This is not designed for locals. That's why every other park has Max Passes, because every other park is a locals park first. Disney World isn't. This system is designed for the tourists who are planning their dining 6 months in advance, and then they're doing their Fast Passes 2 or 1 month in advance, depending on where they stay. It's crappy. It sucks, and it's especially terrible for people who live in Orlando, but it's designed for the people who don't live in Orlando.
No, it's actually not. It's designed for Disney.
By the system the most.
It's designed for Disney to make money
half the time.
Right. If you're
talking about just the regular tourists, they have no idea. Like, they're the ones that get burned and get bad fast passes because they don't know any better.
Yep.
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, no, as Ron said, it's clearly designed for Disney to make more money. So the question is, then, if they can charge for fast passes, wouldn't that make even more money? And even if they charge $20 a day, like Disneyland, so people buy Express Pass at Universal for like $80, and they certainly bought it at Disneyland when it was $10, and they definitely bought it even when it went up to $20.
So people are buying Max Pass
go ahead, Spencer,
at Disneyland. And sorry, just a second, Ashley. So in Disneyland, like Jason said, people are buying Max Pass, and then in Shanghai, you can buy a Fast Pass for an individual ride if you want, right? I think that's how it works there.
It's basically paid to skip the line. It's fantastic.
And I also appreciate the fact that it's not as expensive as Express Passes.
But they're also so limited on how many of those they can sell compared to what Disney does with Fast Pass. Because with Fast Pass, if it's free, because
why does it have to be limited? You can just transition.
20, you're still waiting. You're okay with waiting a little bit if you're not paying for it. If you're waiting 20 minutes for Express Pass at Universal and you've paid $80 for that, you're gonna be livid. That's why they move a lot. My experience with that is it always moves like that. Mm-hmm. Disney has figured out to balance keeping people out of line, keeping them shopping, giving them the illusion of the giving them the illusion of the value of it and all of that. And Disney knows that I believe this number works in other parks, and to me it never worked in the Magic Kingdom, is 8 attractions, shows, experiences a day is what makes people happy. There's been the research on this and stuff like that. And like Epcot, Animal Kingdom, Studios, that makes a lot of sense. Magic Kingdom, if I only got on 8 things a day, I'd be kind of livid, even if it was 8 times on Space Mountain. But yeah, so it's a different thing there, and Disney's doing something different with FastPass than they plan to do with MaxPass. Like, I used MaxPass last time I was in California last year, but I'm not sure I would have bought it if it didn't include the PhotoPass service in it, because I don't mind being the FastPass runner. I don't mind in a few years sending my daughter to be the FastPass runner, but
so here's a question.
But it's nice to be able to have that flexibility in your day and be able to send a runner, like not have to decide and plan out every little bit. Like, it cuts out the time, quite frankly, for a lot of those little magical moments that you just happen upon because you're so focused to keeping to a schedule. That to me is not a vacation. I miss the old system. And as far as Universal goes with the $80, yeah, but that's a completely different system because you can basically walk up to everything with the exception of Hagrid's and get on right away. You don't have to book anything. You just cut the line. So I don't know that that's a fair comparison to the FastPass system. That's
Universal is not, because you're paying on the same thing when you're buying the expensive passes. Last time I went to Six Flags, they had it was $30 or something, and you bought the thing that was basically like FastPass. You can get one at a time or one every 2 hours. And then there was if you just want to walk up to the ride and get it on a 5-minute wait, it was $80 or $90. The ticket cost me $40 to get into the park. And I think that's the comparison there. And I think it's and don't forget, Disney's parks have a lot higher capacity than any of Universal's parks. Or Magic Kingdom is double any of those. Epcot's double any of those. So it is harder to manage those things. There's just a lot of reasons I think Disney does this. And one of the things I learned to love last time with those Fast Passes, and especially having the baby, is I could pre-plan those Fast Passes, go in at noon, and still get my 3 e-tickets without much wait by pre-booking them.
Yep, that's true.
That's true. The old system is biased towards those who show up first in the morning, which is in some ways more fair. But it also kind of ruins your ability to stroll in at 1 p.m. and then go ride whatever e-ticket you want.
If you show up at Rope Drop, you can go ride whatever you want with no wait. And sometimes 2 things with no wait. So showing up at Rope Drop and going to ride things is still beneficial to those that can do that.
Don't get your first strolling in 10 o'clock, guys.
Strolling in at noon and still getting to ride things is also a very advantageous thing. Here's my thought though. So at some point, I think basically the problem that with the system as it was, as of before March, was that too many people had fast passes. Right, it sort of seemed
their math was way off. However, they were
the reason the standby lines were slow as a turtle was because they gave out too many fast passes, and when they took fast pass away from certain attractions, it made it worse. And so, what do you think? If when fast pass, assuming fast pass comes back, and assuming it's not paid fast pass. What if it was FastPass only for resort guests?
I think part of that in there somewhere.
I don't think that's fair to annual pass holders.
Wait, say that.
That's both.
All right, so that's fine. You can annual pass holders can do it too. That's fine. They can book 3 days. Annual pass holders can book 3 days worth of fast passes. That's fine.
But then you're getting into the whole tier system, people who can't afford to stay on property. An extra hour in the park is one thing, but to give them this line cutting ability over people who can only afford a 1 day or 2 day ticket. I don't know that that's fair. I still think the fairest way to do it for everybody. I still think it's not fair now either, and that was a lot of my point. Is you have to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning, 60 or 30 days before you even got to go on vacation to fight with people online and pray to God that the system didn't crash between now and then and lose your fast passes.
Ashley, are you talking about fast passes or Minnie Mouse main attraction merchandise? I'm confused.
All of it. But I still think the absolute fairest way to do it is to do just day of, when you get in the park, you open the app, and just kind of like we used to do with paper fast passes, what was available, and what's not is not, and you book it, you get to use one, and then the next hour you can book another one. I think that was the fairest way to do it back then. I think it's still the fairest way to do it. I think it's absolutely still the fairest way to everybody. You see something, you want to ride it, you book a fast pass.
But
does your system actually?
Tokyo, and I hate it.
Why though?
Well,
does it just not work, or
here's the problem. So they basically took the MaxPass technology that they have at Disneyland, where you open it up and it's all in the app.
Well, that was the first mistake.
Putting it under MaxPass, they just gave it to everyone. So now it entirely depends on whether you walk into the park at the right time and whether the app crashes on you, and also whether you have the app. Because up until June, the app was only available to people who lived in Japan and had a Japanese Apple or Google account. So if you were a tourist coming in, you couldn't come in.
Hold on.
That is a failure of OLC, absolutely.
It's a failure of OLC,
now, right?
Yes, but that's not a failure of the actual FastPass system. That's failures of other factors.
It's a failure of the FastPass system because the only option when Soaring first opened, this was right after Digital FastPass just went to everyone. When Soaring opened, the only way to get a FastPass was through the app. They would keep the machines uncovered for about 2 minutes after park open, and then all the fast passes were gone, and that was that. It was not a fair system at all, and people who didn't know, number one, that you had to open the app, because they didn't advertise it, they didn't tell anyone, so if you didn't already have the app, then you were screwed, and you didn't get to ride Soaring without waiting in a 3-hour line. It's not a fair system at all.
But that, to me, is not a specific failure necessarily. Like, okay, the Soaring thing, them being gone in 2 minutes, I think that is part of the problem. What I specifically want to see is a rollout that would match the old FastPass system. That's very similar to what Universal does now, where it seems like everything just kind of rolls as far as the drops go, and some of it is based on current wait time. Like, you can snap up an extra pass to something that doesn't have a long queue, like a 30, 40-minute wait, but isn't exorbitantly long. So, but the other things that you're complaining about, like the app crashing and everything, that's not a problem with the FastPass system or the math. That's a problem with the app. And I'll give you that. But that's not an actual problem with the FastPass system. And them not explaining the process to people is not a problem with the process. That is OLC's fault, but it's not a problem. It's not the fault of the actual implementation of FastPass. If they implemented it correctly, would it work?
If you're making the FastPass system entirely dependent on the fact that you have to have an app that was until very recently only available in Japan, in a country where smartphone adoption has only just kind of plateaued.
But again, that's not the reliability fault of and dependence
FastPass. Of the system. Yes,
and we're talking. and we're also
Spencer.
talking about
all right.
WDW. Like, that's
Spencer.
not the fault of what they wanted to use. Like, you could still use paper FastPass then at Tokyo if that was the problem. Like, that's not a FastPass issue. That is a app and technology and them not understanding their audience issue.
Right. Yes. There's two different issues. One is that the app sucks, and that's whether you're in Tokyo or Florida. The app sucks. All right. And now that you can get the app in Tokyo without a Japanese Apple account, you can't bring that up anymore because we're talking about what's going to happen in the future.
I'm just talking about
so
fast
third,
pass system in general, but okay.
so people in the chat are talking about it's not fair because people can't afford to stay on property to not get fastpass. Everybody should get it for free, yada, yada, yada. I mean, if you extrapolate that to Tokyo, well, it's not fair that people that don't have a smartphone can't ride the ride, right? It's kind of like Rise of the Resistance, where if you don't have a smartphone, you can't get a boarding group. Like you used to be able to do that
too.
Right, and so there's all.
So then it sounds like we just go back to the paper system.
Well,
and voila, problem solved.
So the paper system is one thing. What I think makes the paper system not great is that you have to walk a lot more. And
the hard exercise.
Well, no, but I mean, if you're with little kids or something, it's an issue.
But now what you could do, because, we did. But the other thing is, now that technology has kind of progressed, you could have like fast pass stations, like 1 or 2 in each land, where you could print a fast pass for anything. You don't necessarily have to return to that specific spot.
The other thing. But so listen, I think people who are saying that it's not fair to those staying off property. Well, I mean, you get we used to get extra magic hours on property, and that wasn't fair to people staying off property. I mean, if you didn't know when extra magic hours was, and you thought you could get there at rope drop and go run and ride Mine Train with no line, and you were there on an extra magic hour day, the line was already like an hour and a half at rope drop. So there's always perks for people staying on property. One of the problems is that right now, if you stay on property, you don't get any perks because there's no magic hours. There's no extra magic hours. There's no fast pass to get your 60-day window instead of 30. Like, there's a lot less perks for staying on property now than there used to be. And so, but in any case, if they made fast pass resort guest only, the reason that I think it wouldn't be as bad to those people who are staying off property is because there wouldn't be as many out there. And that means the standby line would move much faster than it did. And so even if you were off property without a fast pass, you could get in the standby line kind of like you do now, and it would still move at a pretty good clip. Because there aren't as many fast passes out there. And that's my issue, is that there's just too many fast passes out there.
But what if the inverse happens and more people stay on property, so there's more people in a fast pass queue?
Well, I mean, half the hotels aren't open. But it can't, because on-property hotels are at 90+% occupancy all the time anyway. So there can't be more people that stay on property. It would have to be less. Less people would get a fast pass if they restricted it to Disney resorts.
So I want to propose an idea I think that will solve Ashley's concerns about fairness. I like the idea of making fast pass free, exclusive to resort guests. What if there was, you sell off the extra capacity like Shanghai does. You sell maybe $8 and you can get a fast pass for, I don't know, Rock and Roller Coaster or something like that if you're a day guest. That way there is a way for you to still get in on the system, but you have to pay for it. Not something ridiculous like $30, but maybe $7-8 to ride Tower of Terror or Rock and Roller Coaster.
Right, so it's like Universal Express Pass is basically 10 attractions, because that's all they have, for $80. So it's really the same thing, except you have to buy the package deal for all of them. Let me throw out something else. So I like that idea. I like that idea. And let me throw out something else. Let me throw out something else that I've thought. And anytime someone complains about Express Pass being $80 or like as expensive as the ticket to get in the park, here's my thought. You have 2 days to go to Universal, and you want to ride everything. You want to ride everything, and you have 2 days. So what you could do is you could buy 2-day tickets that cost whatever it is, $200, and spend
about
2 days in
$230.
lines. You spend 2 whole days in lines, and you write everything, but you spend a heck of a lot of time in line. Or, for the same amount of money, you buy a 1-day ticket plus Express Pass, and you write everything without spending hardly any time in lines. You come out with a much better experience, and you saved a whole day, and it didn't cost you any more money.
If you have more than a family if you're more than 2 people, switch your hotel to one of the 3 Lowe's hotels, because the price differential between that and Cabana is never more than like $200, and so you're getting 2 days of Express Pass with that for that price. So a family of 4, say, staying at Cabana for a night and 2-day tickets and Express Pass, I'm thinking is probably somewhere around like, hold on, let me do the math in my head real quick.
And that was actually my plan when I was going to come to. That was my plan when I was going to come to Orlando in May, was to buy a 1-day ticket for Universal and Express Pass, and then just run between IOA and Universal Studios and do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes down to with Express Pass, I think we do have to think about Universal differently, because Universal Orlando isn't as much of a destination place as Disney World is. And it makes a lot more sense to sell an Express Pass that is the same cost as a 1-day ticket. I don't think you could do that as effectively at Disney World. You couldn't.
No, I don't think.
That's why I think if you were going to monetize FastPass at Disney World, it probably would have to be on an individual ride-by-ride basis, like I suggested.
We have to go back to ticket books.
So let me just go with what I was saying. It's about, I'm not even going to do the full math on it. 2 days of Express Pass is about $160 per person. Upgrading from a Cabana Bay to a Lowe's hotel is going to be at most about $300 to $400. So if you've got more than a family of 2, do that. Do the split stays. I was just talking in the chat, like, my ideal Universal vacation right now is going to be about 2 nights at one of the Lowe's. Any of them are really great, and 2 nights at Cabana Bay, and do Volcano Bay the Volcano Bay part as part of that Cabana Bay, and you're going to really maximize your Express Pass use. That's just what I'm saying there. And whatever we do with FastPass at Disney World, someone's going to say it's not fair. Pay for play, stay on property, stay or not. Someone's always going to say it.
$130 to get into Hollywood Studios is unfair too, but people still do it.
That's very true.
So whatever, somebody's going to say it's unfair. Whatever system you have, it's there. I don't like pay to play. I think try and at least have some democratization about how it's done. Give the advantage to the resorts, but don't make things exclusive to the resorts there. Is I think the way to go. I think the 60-day window is absurd, and if the Park Pass system sticks around, which they might try and do, because it gives them that whole scheduling thing that they really want, you could drop that Fast Pass to like 2 weeks and 1 week, and I think most people would stop complaining about the having to be so far in advance. Like, I think that's why the dining reservations were 6 months for that scheduling in the park hours. They would adjust, park hours by how many dining reservations. But they realized people shifted dining reservations so much, and were no shows and stuff like that. That's why we got the 60 days for the Fast Passes. I still think there should be, if they keep the system, there should be still a certain penalty that if you miss enough Fast Passes without canceling, like, I know they don't care if you cancel anytime in your window, but if you just let the window lapse more than a certain amount of times, like, you're blocked out of the Fast Pass scheduling for a little bit, at least for the rest of that day, if anything's available.
Some kind of penalty.
Like that. They do that with the dining reservations with the $10 fees, which if you have a legitimate excuse, you call when you get out of. But the Fast Pass thing, since it's not a monetary thing, it's like if you miss all 3 of your morning Fast Passes, you shouldn't be able to try and book something in the afternoon if you didn't cancel them. I don't care if you cancel them at like 10:55 and it ends at 11. That's still canceling.
Well, but that brings up an interesting point, too, because a lot of people started having to shuffle around dining reservations because you can still do dining 180 days in advance, and you can only do FastPass 60 days in advance. So what happens if the two conflict? You then have to try to move your dining reservation or wait till the day of and come up with a sob story to try to get out of said dining reservation. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me either. Like, they should be on the same day, or
no, that is a bad idea because if they
I think it was
too
a
much
bad
to
idea.
do.
Yeah, that's too much.
There's entirely too much planning.
You know what? I'm going to say this is sort of self-promotion. Get a TA. They do it. No Disney TA should be charging you for this. They're going to make sure you get the best deal. They get paid by Disney, not you, and they do all this kind of planning for you. So it is self-promotion, but look at getting a TA for these kind of things if you really don't like the hassle of it.
I will acknowledge the TA because one of them sponsors one of our shows. I'm not a TA person, but I know a lot of people are. I'm one of those people that has to do everything on my own. I'm like a control freak about my vacations. I think that the problem with having everything on the same day is that you then have to have at least two people next to you, which not everyone has. Sometimes it's only the one person planning the vacation, and you would have to both do your fast passes at 7 a.m. and somehow also do your dining reservations at 7 a.m. And it would just be too much, and you'd have a lot of unhappy people because you'd have to either choose,
but that's
what's more important, my fast passes or my dining? That would just be an unfair system, and it would piss a lot of people off.
But that's kind of my point, is that there's entirely too much planning now in a Disney vacation. Because even now, okay, I have to make like a year-long calendar of everything that I have to do before my vacation, or a half-a-year calendar. I have to figure out what restaurants I want to eat at. Well, first I have to pick my parks, what park I want to do on what day. Then I have to try to coordinate dining reservations at 6 months. Then at 60 days, I have to try to coordinate my fast passes, which also have to coordinate with everything else that I've pre-planned. Like, you have to have an Excel spreadsheet now to go on a Disney vacation. It's ridiculous. Like, it's so dumb, and it's all because of the fast pass system. Like, I have no problem with, picking what days you want to go, or looking at restaurants and being like, calling to see what's available, because you don't have to worry about fast passes because they're going to be there when you get there the day of. So it just takes a good chunk of what used to be the fun going on a Disney vacation out of it. This whole early reservation fast pass system. I don't care how they implement it, quite frankly, at this point. I still am a huge proponent. It needs to go back to day of. When you get to the parks, what's available is available, and that's it. You go to standby or what's available fast pass, you can get a fast pass and score. Extra bonus, you don't have to wait in that line. And I think now, because we've proven that people can wait in standby, it just proves all the better that it could work day of.
And also, it works every other Disney
my trip. I used to use Excel spreadsheets to plan my trip before FastPass existed.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that I don't doubt. I mean, you still can, but there's like a stress level to it now. Like, you're planning like a military invasion to figure out your vacation, and it's supposed to be a vacation.
There's a reason they call it commando style. Yes, absolutely.
I will remember.
It's insane.
For our 1-year anniversary, Laura and I did the Platinum Plan. For those who don't know what that was the everything included. You had to buy your tickets and things, but it was all of your dining.
I remember wanting to do that.
You could do any of the tours. It included Victorian Alberts and dining. You could do any kind of recreation, boat rentals. All that was included. So you had to do a minimum of 3 days, and it wasn't cheap. But it was our first anniversary, so we did the thing. It was about $250 per person per day on top of tickets and hotel, and you had to be staying at a deluxe on top of it to do it. And you're not really getting to enjoy the deluxe, or you're not really utilizing the plan. It's, you're either going morning to night or that. And I had to do multiple spreadsheets with like what tours are available on what days, what time, and all these different things. And you get concierge level service when you do this. So I get called about 190 days out and said, "Hey, I'm your concierge. I want to talk you through what's this doing? And I just email, I'm like, okay, let me email you my spreadsheet. And they're like, I have never seen anybody.
But see, for something like that, when you're paying like a premium, I totally understand that. Like that was a very special trip that you had stuff and all that you wanted to do. Like for me and my husband or a family with small children, like especially families with small children, like I know that you can, but kids are such a wild card. Like inevitably something is going to get messed up with what you're planning to do. It adds to me for most trips, again, unless you're doing something very specific and special like what Ron described, it takes a lot, it adds a layer of stress to your vacation that you don't need.
And I agree. I took a long time to adapt to the FastPass Plus system. I think it suits my trips better because I don't come quite as often. You're, driving distance away. You go like a little bit. Like I do have to plan airfare and stuff like that to get down there. So it definitely works better for people like me. I mean, I do love the paper system. I abused the hell out of the paper system, and I think it was definitely friendlier to people.
That's different.
Oh, I knew where the button was, but I also knew like the limitations of the computer system, where any old ticket media or Disney, anything that had a magnetic strip that was on the Disney database system would work. Like credit cards wouldn't work, but if you had old Key to the World cards that were expired, that were just room keys. So like you could say, I lost my room key, like every day go get. By the end of it, you have a stack of tickets like this and you're putting them in the machine and doing that. And living there, I would have my main gate pass. I would ask for people for their tickets back at the end of the day. By the time I'd been working there for a couple of years, I'd go to the parks with an extra set of tickets like this, and I would get 7 rock and roller coasters in a row for my entire party. And we never would use that many, so I'd go around playing FastPass Ferry, which is something I really miss about.
See, but you can't do that anymore.
I think it was like 2 years ago, we had re-entry tickets, and it was our last day or something because we had broken down on People Mover, and we weren't going to be able to use them because we only had like a half day in the park or whatever. We were flying out that night. And I've got those re-entry tickets that they give you to make the make good ones. And I'm trying to walk up to people and give them, and they're just so suspicious of me.
Because they don't see those anymore.
Yeah. So it was really like, what are you trying to say? No, I'm trying to give you a FastPass ticket. You just got in this line with your family. You could bypass it. Please take this. And people were saying no.
Yeah. Well, you also can't, if you don't have enough fast passes for your party and one of them happens to be your nephew who's 5, you can't tell him to lie and just say that he dropped his paper fast pass and get him on with you.
Yeah. So
I miss playing
the paper fast pass system long survived me doing this as a cast member. I did not kill it. I mean, there were cast members who would go borrow the keys from the attractions they worked at to go to other machines and unlock them. So I was way beyond what the other cast was doing. But yeah, I like the paper system. I miss it, but it's got its disadvantages.
The Disneyland FastPass system had its own quirks, and some of the machines weren't connected to the network and stuff. So there was a point in time where I held 9 valid fast passes between the 2 parks at the Disneyland Resort. And there were 4 of us in our group, so I had 36 valid fast passes in my hand. And I would have had more, except Splash Mountain went down, so I couldn't get the one for Splash. But I have a picture of that somewhere. I'd have to look for it. But it was the funniest thing ever, because I'm like, we've got all of these fast passes, and they're all valid, and it was insane.
I will say this with I miss when I could go to Disneyland and then go get a fast pass and then run over to Disney Sea and get a separate one because they were on separate systems. And then they integrated the system last Christmas, and I was really upset about that.
Not the last trip before we got Andy, because that was our Wreck the Halls event, so I was busy running around with you guys at the time. But we took a trip that fall and it was a rainy day in the Magic Kingdom. We had a couple breakdowns. We had a few like issues with the monorail, but because of that, and just being able to use the fastpass system on a fall day, like the week after Labor Day when it's quiet on a rainy day in the Magic Kingdom, I think I hit a record of 15 fast passes that day.
Wow.
And I'm like that. Wow. I didn't like. I actually like felt a little accomplished with that. It's like, I mean, some of them were obviously. It's like, well, we're gonna go see Philhar Magic. Let's just get the fast pass to use it because it was at least
just because nobody does.
But it was raining, so the people were actually in queue for it. But like, we got one because we were on Pooh and it broke down. We got an extra one because we went over to 1900 Park Fair, and the monorail was broken, so they were giving everybody fast passes that they were getting on the bus. I don't know if that would happen at any other resort than the Grand Floridian, but they were adding.
I mean, Ron, the monorail breaks at every resort.
Right, but I don't think they're going to be giving fast passes if you have to take a bus.
No, I know.
At anywhere else but the Grand Floridian. And the boats, because the boats couldn't be, the boats weren't even running because the weather was too bad.
Now they just make you walk.
Yeah, but so that was my record for the fast passes. Legitimately, not
one thing I do love about the digital system, though, is I don't know if this is just because of the fact that it's so hard to get tickets for our parks right now, but when they give out multi-experience passes now and they're linked to your app on your Disney account, when you get a multi-experience, it's valid right now for 2 years instead of just being same day like it used to be. So when I was on Beauty and the Beast on Wednesday and it broke down, they gave me a pass and they said, you can come back, and literally, like, if you look at the thing, the available attractions, it literally lists every single thing in the... Oh, my studio light is reflecting there. Every single thing in the park all the way up to Beauty and the Beast. And you can use it. It says anytime. Well, it says anytime between December 10th, 2020 and December 11th, 2022. They give you this really broad window to come back. And I think that's one of the few benefits I've seen so far with the new system, is with that, you're not limiting people to just finding something to do the same day. You can put it in the bank and come back another time, because everyone's going to come back. Especially if you have something that's like, hey, this is a guaranteed way to pass a big line or the ride lottery. That's a motivation to go spend $80 on a ticket to come back to the park, or $120 if it's in the US.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's definitely somewhere in between what the two systems have, and I'm trying to think of it in my mind. And you can't rely on smartphones for everybody.
Well, the benefit of tying it... Well, the benefit of tying it to your account is that you can't just go turn around and resell it on, we have Mercari or Yahoo Auctions, you have to use it. So it prevents people from putting these passes out into the world. It keeps it linked to you and you only.
Right.
There's certainly benefits to the digital system.
Because the paper tickets, sometimes the make good ones are like good for a week. I've never tried to put one up on eBay, but if it ever happens again, because sometimes they do that when it's a mass evac, they don't want to bother putting it on your tapping everybody's band as they go through. So they'll just print a ton of them and hand them out. That would be interesting. I've never tried it, but I'd like to see what they go for. But then again, the next minute auctions, who knows?
Well, when ours break down, all the cast members have these little iPhones that have scanners for the QR code tickets, and they just keep the camera open, and you slide your phone, next phone, and it just puts the multi-experience on with a one-touch system. And if the Magic Bands weren't such a pain, then they could probably pull that off in Florida.
Well, no, it works. It actually works pretty good on the Magic Band system.
It works fine,
except when they're doing something like the People Mover system, where they take 10 cars of people evac'd in a giant line at once when you're in Space Mountain, and then they have you all walk to a line to where you can get to a staircase to get down. Then you have a couple hundred people in a second. It's easier to hand out the things. Like when we get evac off of 2, and there's only maybe 80 people in the whole ride at one point, they could do the taps better.
Yeah, when they evac Beauty and the Beast, there's probably 300 or 400 people on the ride, but also they have to walk them through because it's a trackless ride. So it's spaced out enough. But yeah, I really think that something that we're overlooking in this conversation, because we're all dumping on the digital system, is that there are real benefits to having the fast passes on the phone that we just have entirely glossed over. We've spent the whole time complaining and how we want digital. Or
definitely.
back,
Look,
but...
no, I mean, I'm cool with digital. I just want day of. That's my only ask. I don't care. Like, however you want to give it to me, I just want day of back. That's what I want.
Yeah, I think that is a good move. And it works everywhere else. Every other Disney park except for Disney World is a day of system.
But every other Disney park is a 70 to 70+% locals park. Disney World is a 70+%. Not right now, but under normal circumstances.
Is mostly tourists.
Yeah.
But again, I feel bad because a lot of tourists are the ones that again get burned by the system.
They are the ones who
they give you
that they
so
need to use
many
NPX.
reminders. Yeah.
You think
and now they
read
do
their emails?
They were doing things where do you at one point they were testing do you want to auto load attractions? And usually they weren't the best attractions. Like you'd get pirates, you'd get one e-ticket in there at Magic Kingdom, kind of at most. But they were trying to do that. So that was something they were really trying to help out with. And I think there is development here. I just don't know what they're going to put with where they're going to put the money on it and whatever. And it's 10 o'clock. Oh, wow.
I know that really quickly. I know they said in their second quarter financials here that they want to play with paid Fast Pass. And I'm kind of thinking that we're just going to get Max Pass essentially. But whatever it is, I'm sure they'll look at us in Disneyland and be like, oh, well, if it works in Tokyo and Anaheim, maybe something's worth touching in Florida. You never know.
I just remember at one point Eisner did specifically say, and I don't know how they can hold this to them as, a marketing thing is, I swear at one point I heard him say, FastPass is free and will always be here. I remember some executives saying
I thought so too.
Is that legally binding?
I think
that's not legally binding.
If it was on air in an interview, they could try and hold him to it as marketing or something like that. But, I mean, it's been 20 years. It would be hard. If they did it the next day, that's one thing. But, 20-something years later, it would be hard.
Especially since he's no longer with the company anymore.
His contracts are still binding.
Well.
But, yeah.
But if you've got a shaky foundation to begin with.
Yeah.
Well,
there's
it's some crazy how it's 10 already.
Advertised promises are a weird part of contract law that's a little different, and I haven't dealt with it in a while.
We spent a lot of time arguing about FastPass, and before that, we spent a lot of time arguing about Disney Plus.
We never got to Taco.
No,
there'll be more tacos in the future.
Can we go for another 20 minutes and talk about how stupid that is? And how ugly it is.
There'll be more. Why don't we wait until they roll out more? Then it'll be twice as stupid and twice as ugly.
But we can go over.
What were they thinking?
Go ahead. We could talk about it. Fine.
It's so ugly. I'm not even in Florida. It's so ugly.
To Tom's point, who looked at that and said, "Yep, that's a great idea. That needs to sit in the middle of the lagoon all day, all night." It's fine. Screw the sightlines.
I thought it sank a little bit because that bottom foundation part, I thought they were going to sink. And I mean, it's still going to have something above the water. I agree with you.
It almost looks like it could, but no.
But now I'm looking. I see HVAC equipment on there on the bottom and stuff like that. You have the setup that they do and I know it's a much shallower lagoon. But that's kind of besides the point. It's not like it's
for World of Color.
Challenger deep in the middle of World Shake Lakes Lagoon. I'm sure it's only maybe at most I would guess 10 meters would be a super deep lake in Florida. I would guess probably closer to 10 to 15 feet in the minimum. In the middle, and because I think it was a natural lake they expanded, Jason, if I'm trying to remember. Because that
I think that's
yeah,
correct,
that-
because
that
I
was
think that's part
man-made.
of why they have all the sinkhole issues.
there was a partial lake there, but I don't think it was that whole thing. But you don't dig them
No.
that
Right.
deep. Like the World of Color system, you can sink that thing. Like I looked at when I first saw the thing come out, I'm like, oh, it's going to sink a little bit and open up, and it's not always going to be like that. This was just the transportation. But now that I see like the HVAC equipment on the bottom, and this is like, even if you cover it with fountains, yes, it'll look nice as it is, like if it's constantly streaming water. But one, that's going to wear the thing out. Two, you're still blocking the views across World Showcase.
Yep.
And you're going to have trouble hiding the big black thing of HVAC equipment at the bottom, even with the fountains.
Why is that there? Like, I don't understand the design. Like, if it's so complicated, you need HVAC.
So,
yeah, if it's so complicated, do we want to take the over-under on how many times Harmonious goes down?
The HVAC is honestly probably for the computers and the lights that run the screens. That's my guess.
Why can't that stuff be broadcast wirelessly? That's my question.
Also an excellent question.
It can.
What was wrong with the way we used to do eliminations?
You still need a computer to run the screen.
Well, it doesn't need to be a giant, massive computer like that.
But what was wrong with the way we did illuminations? What was wrong? Why can't we just bring the barges in and out every day?
Because these are too big.
I mean, well, then maybe they're entirely too big. Like well, but they should have thought about that when designing the show, or done something different. Or made it at least look pretty. I don't know.
I would argue that there is a more expensive, there's a much more expensive solution that has already been proven at a Disney park and would work, which is it would look ugly for a while. You wall off a big chunk of the lake and drain it, and then you build a pit like we have here at Disney Sea, and then you put the Choco Taco down there, and it rises out of the water for Harmonious every night. It would be a little bit expensive. It works here. We're on reclaimed land. I don't see why that wouldn't work in Florida.
It absolutely would work, Spencer. It's the way to do it, except it costs a lot of money.
Well, it would cost money, but number one, the pit is multi-use. You could bring that back for a bunch of other shows, and people are always going to be amazed when something just comes out of the water. That's cool.
Oh, yeah.
People like that
absolutely.
Stuff.
Yep.
I think that would be a much better solution. It would be expensive, but it would be a better solution. It preserves the sightlines. It's an extra wow factor for people. I don't know why they didn't just wall off the lagoon for a few months and build a pit.
Money.
Well, yeah, money.
Money, or they don't have faith enough to not to want anything permanent. They might not see they might see these oh, we could repurpose this somewhere else if this doesn't work as a show.
Where the hell else are you going to repurpose that thing?
I don't know. I really don't.
The only other parks with big lagoons are California Adventure and Disney Sea. That's it. I mean, California Adventure, the mechanism for World of Color is already down there, and it's a very Paradise Pier Lagoon Lake thing is really shallow, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's very shallow.
Arlo posted some stuff. Everything there is man-made, so it can't be that deep. It really can't.
In California?
No, in Florida. Epcot.
Oh.
I would put World Showcase Lagoon at probably 10 feet. It's probably somewhere between 7 and 10 feet. That's how deep Mediterranean Harbor is. I would imagine World Showcase Lagoon is around the same depth.
Yeah, I just wonder, there's just so many weird things with it. It's something that's mobile, but it's not. I don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
They could have. They already have the retracting arms for the show already, right? Why couldn't they have just made something smaller with the Choco Taco and then expanded it out like they did with the Earth Globe and make it a big spectacle? People love the Earth Globe.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's built by people who don't go to Epcot and don't understand people like the views. and it never occurred to them.
Which is so insane because, like, the whole American Pavilion was designed to, like, draw you back there because you see it walking towards World Showcase. And now you're not going to be able to see any of that. Like, clearly, to Ron's point, the people who designed this have probably never stepped foot in Epcot in their lives to understand any of the sightlines. Like, they gave...
This is the problem of having WPI still based out of Glendale. They do great, they are good people. They do great things, but they still have this Disneyland-centric mentality about.
Is this show even designed by WDI?
That's a good question.
I don't know, but I'm just saying in general, like, things.
Yeah, I don't know that it is.
California.
I don't know that it is.
Which is another whole thing to be on its own.
That's a whole other argument.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're not doing shows by Creative Entertainment, the big problem also is they've been spending years trying to do this whole push to get social media presence. That's why we have, like, the purple wall stuff and things like that, or the best walls at Disney World, and now they're completely wrecking one of their... It's true! It is!
I know! It was just so adorable the way you said the purple wall.
Anyway, they're doing this push for all these, like, Instagrammable spots, and they're trying so hard to make Disney World like this appealing place for people to post stuff on Instagram and get free guerrilla marketing. And now they're killing one of their best views.
At every turn.
They're killing one of their best views by putting the taco in the middle of World Showcase Lagoon. It just doesn't make sense. I don't get it.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it kills it from both sides. You can't see American Adventure to draw you back there. You can't see... Well, you can obviously still see Spaceship Earth, but not as well, obviously. So seeing it all lit up and everything from America, looking back at the rest of the park, like, it's just... I don't understand any of the decision-making with this.
And to Jason's point, how many times do you think Harmonious is going to be like, oh, we had to cancel the show because the thing that's running all day, every day has broken?
That's what I'm saying. Like, what's the over-under on how often it breaks down? Like...
Yeah.
Or just facade the thing to look like to match Spaceship Earth or something. Don't just have this big black block out there.
Yeah, at least make it something interesting. Like, camouflage it as something. Like, make it something interesting. Make it look like an island or something, for crying out loud. Like, do something interesting with it so that it doesn't just look like this big, mess in the middle of the park that doesn't even look like it belongs there. Like, it looks like you just left it there because you were too lazy to put it away when you were done playing with it the night before.
That's a good point, actually. I didn't think of that. Why didn't they just build an island to hide these little arms that are going to come up?
Someone in our chat saying that there's actually a lot of what we're seeing is still covers, and a lot of that's going to come off. I don't know. They said they can't say more, but they...
I hope to God you're telling the truth. I really do.
Because there does seem like way too much superstructure on that thing for what it needs to do.
And I will give some benefit of the doubt if that turns out to be the case. But as it is right now, it looks atrocious. And no amount of fountains in the world is going to hide it during the day.
Yeah.
And it still screws up the views even if there are fountains. So I don't understand why they would have done it.
How did they get it in there in the first place? If it sailed in, why can't it sail out?
Probably just the amount of time and the precision. They might have to hook up plumbing.
It's not that it can't be taken in and out. It's that it's too complicated to do it every day.
There's probably plumbing, like divers underneath hooking up something.
Yeah.
The upshot also of this is, why would you design something that's too complicated to take in and out every day?
I mean, why would you design a ride that can't operate every day reliably? But yet, here we are with Rise of the Resistance.
Why
Well,
would
let's look
you
at the
build
Inferno
just a
barge.
giant box and paint it blue and green and hope to God that hides it from people's view? Like, we could drive ourselves crazy asking the questions about current Imagineering's decisions. Well,
That's a
current
good point,
management's
actually.
decisions. I mean, especially in this park, it seems, of all parks, seems to be getting a lot of bad decisions.
Yeah.
Some good,
I mean,
but a lot of bad.
That's been the case since like 1996, to be honest. So.
Yeah,
that's true.
The Inferno
Epcot
barge caused a
seemed
lot
like
of
it's moving
problems
out of direction.
on its own in the big illuminations thing. Like, it had to be emptied and filled in place. Like, that's why they had to have that burn off every night, because they couldn't move the tanks at a certain level of pressure with gas in it. I think they finally learned out how much gas they were using.
Yeah.
But after they stopped the burn off, I also saw that fail a few more times than it ever did before they stopped the burn off.
Well,
So I
it
don't
was
know if
also
that was
old at
any
that
part of
point.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was well
because
past the service
my
date.
last illuminations had no working Inferno barge.
Oh, that sucks. It just seems like there's so many better.
there's more coming, right?
Wait, they're all gonna stay there all day, all 4 of them?
Yeah. So maybe the
Oh my
idea is this is only 1 out of 4, and so
Oh,
once the other
God.
3 come out, then maybe there'll be some like weird, parallel universe view system that you can like see through them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna believe that'll work.
Maybe they're gonna maybe the image they'll put on the screen is just the image of whatever the pavilion is that you would be seeing if the screen wasn't there.
Maybe.
Possibly.
I don't know. I haven't even been to Florida in years, and I still don't have faith that they're going to make this work and make it look good.
Nope.
I had
Not even a
enough,
little bit.
doubts about this show to begin with. This isn't helping.
Well, and now there's not a
Yeah.
pavilion for you to go pay extra for a dessert party to watch it from.
I still can't believe they cut an entire building that was supposed to just be upcharges. That still makes no sense to me, but that's a different story.
Nope. But hey, they also didn't want my
That's
money
actually a good point.
for me to upgrade my annual pass, so there you go. Well, I'm sure
It's
we're
only
going to
'cause they
talk
knew
about these
you were,
barges
Jason.
again. I'm sure we're going to talk about these barges again because there's 3 more of them to come. So we'll see how bad it gets, but it's not looking good.
Is the
far,
Stargate thing in these barges that we've seen?
I don't know.
It's in the chocolate
Like-
taco, isn't it?
I don't
You're
know,
right.
because there's a big thing that was I'd say like a 30-foot diameter, looked like the Stargate.
Oh, that's different. I think that's different. No, that's different.
I forgot
okay.
about that.
Yeah. If
I
you
thought
look
that was
at
in the chocolate
BioReconstruct's aerial
That's
photos,
very
that's back
accurate.
there. That's different. Yep, that's different.
Okay, then.
So the
All right,
Goa'uld
well,
will
I am
still
gonna-
be invading it.
I am gonna call this to a close for tonight. We still didn't. What didn't we talk about? We got the barges in. What else were we supposed to talk about that we didn't talk about? Oh, the masks.
Oh,
the
yeah, the
masks.
digital masks.
But that's all right. That was a goofy thing. But maybe we'll talk about it at some point. But anyway, yes. So thanks everybody for watching tonight. It was a really good discussion. Yeah, I think we're gonna have a show. So I'm scheduled to fly back from Orlando next Sunday. And if my flight is on time, I'll get here for the show. But if my flight's not on time, then I might not get here for the show. So if I can find a substitute host, we will probably have a show. But that's up in the air yet because I haven't tried. So anyway, that's where things stand. Yeah, if we don't have a show next week, the week after's Christmas. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'll let people know. We'll have a post if we're gonna have a show. Hopefully we can have a show. Hopefully I'll be able to find a host to take over for me for the week. But anyway, so yeah. Spencer's pointing at his hair.
No, I'm pointing at Ashley. She should host the show.
Oh, Ashley should host.
I'll host, but I don't know how to run any of the tech. Kevin, are you out there?
Ron knows how to run the tech.
Someone.
And I can't set up the tech for this because Andy's bedtime is 8 o'clock, so I've got to rush her to bed every time before I do this.
Whoops.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. It's fine.
All right,
it's gonna be fine.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a show next week. That's the plan. And then we'll take off Christmas week, and then we'll come back in the new year with a whole bunch of new panelists that we're going to rotate in and out because the auditions are going really well so far. And there's a lot of people I think that are going to do a really great job. So that's that. Thanks for watching. Thank you to Ashley and Ron and Spencer for being on tonight. And
thank you.
We'll see you all next week. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Happy holidays.